Alright, so these three are the fundamental frameworks that you need when you wanna work with Webflux and JWT. Copy the dependencies and go back to your project, open up pom.xml, and inside the dependency stack, make some space and paste this in. So let's call this auth, and it's going to return mono.just hello, welcome to the club, how did you get authorized, you know. So we are going to be able to enter this endpoint only if we have been authenticated. Okay, so we have an endpoint and it's in /auth. So this is what the link is going to look like. It's going to be http localhost 8080/auth. Okay, so let's run our server. So we are running our server, and when we try to access this, we are going to get 401 unauthorized. This is how Spring security has been set up by default. So we are going to create our own configurations. So we're going to create a new class, call it configs.securityconfig. It's going to be enable Webflux security. There you go. So the first bean that I would like to create is going to be used for encoding the passwords. So it's going to be public password encoder, and it's just going to return new password encoder. There you go. Fake list of users. In real project, you want to fetch the users from your database. Okay, so it's going to be a bean, it's going to be public, and it's going to return map reactive user detail service. Okay, and we're just gonna call it user blah blah blah, and its argument is going to be password encoder, and we don't have to worry about this because Spring is going to take care of supplying us the argument through dependency injection. Okay, there you go. I add some comments to make it easy for you. So we are going to create a new user details user is equals to user.builder, and then we're going to build a user. Name something, usernames, let's call it cuckoo.password. It's gonna be cuckoo. Sorry, no, it's gonna be encoder.encode, and we're gonna pass our name. Our roles are gonna be we are a user. Then we're going to build this. Perfect. So we have a user, right? So we are gonna return the new map reactive service, and we're gonna pass in our users. This should have been user, not users. Okay, there you go. So the final thing that we need is a bean, and it's gonna return security web filter chain. Let's call this, and then it's gonna server HTTP security. Let's call this HTTP. Okay, and this is going to be responsible for overriding or replacing the current security configuration that we have. So we're gonna return, let's not return first HTTP, and then we're gonna go to the next line and put a dot to access this, right? And auth exchange, and we're gonna make some lambda function. We are gonna open a lambda function, and here we are gonna be like auth.anyExchange dot permit all. So every path is going to be open, right? And then .http basic disable form login disable. We don't want that. .csrf.disable.build. Okay, there you go, and we are gonna be returning this. Okay, perfect, right? So what we did is we opened up every single path, and then we are disabling the HTTP basic authentication, we are disabling the form login, we are disabling the CSRF, and then at the very end we are building it. So if you run this, and now we try to go to our auth endpoint, we are going to get 200 status code, which means okay, and we are going to get this body: hello, welcome to the club, how did you get authenticated? So yes, our code is working, but this is not what we want, right? We don't want to expose this to everyone, so we are gonna get rid of this. I just showed you this because I wanted you to know how it works. Path matchers, and let's make it /login dot permit all, so everyone is allowed to go to this endpoint, because you know, how are they supposed to get authenticated if they can't even go to this endpoint, right? And the second one is going to be auth.path matcher / okay, and the rest, you know, the rest is going to be any exchange is going to be authenticated. Okay, so everything's working. Now let's create a new post mapping, and it's going to be /login public mono string login string mono dot just login page. So let's restart this server, and now if we try to yes, go to this specific page, auth, we are not going to be authorized, which is correct because that's what we defined. Any exchange has to be authenticated. Only the login endpoint is going to be exposed to everyone. So if we go to the login, this one is gonna work just fine. Status 200 okay, because this has been exposed to everyone. So yes, everything's working just fine. GG, that's what we wanted. Okay, yeah, that's exactly what we wanted. So for the login, we want what do we want? We want the username and the password to be passed by the requester or by the client, whatever you want to call it. So what are we gonna do? Okay, so what we are gonna do is we're gonna create a models, and inside models we are going to be create a new package called request resp bodies. Okay, and we're gonna create a new class. What's gonna be login request bodies login. So we're gonna have a private string mail, okay, private string password. There you go. It's gonna be getters, and we're gonna have all args constructor. So this they come from the Lombok. Getters is going to make sure that both of the private field have getters, and all our constructor is going to make sure that we have a constructor that's going to take both the email and the password. So we're gonna go back here, and inside the login we're gonna have a request body annotation, and it's gonna be of type request login, and it's gonna be user. There you go. So what we can do is, instead of doing this, we can do hello, and then we can do plus user dot get email. And for this request I'm gonna make use of postman. So let's start our server and see if this is working. User this is the one, I guess. Yes. Body. We are going to pass in a JSON object to this, and it's going to be a type post, so it's exactly what it needs to be. We send this request, it's going to be hello cuckoo, because that's what we passed as the email, right? So if I pass in ASD, it's going to be hello ASD. Okay, it's working perfectly fine. Okay, next thing that we want to do is I would like to organize this a lot better. So we're going to have our custom model, I would say, yeah, custom class that's going to represent the response and request object. So we're going to create a new package. It's going to be of type request resp model. And here we're going to have a Java class. I'm going to call it's going to be of type interface I request resp model. It's going to have a generic type of T. It's going to be get data and T get data. You know what? No, it's not going to be of type T. You know, yeah, it's going to be of type T, and we're going to have another string get message. Okay, and you'll know the reason behind this. We'll return the data of the response. Return a message, and it's going to be type string if there has been any error. Example on photo 4 error, this needs to return not found or something like that. You know, it's just an example. So we're going to create a new class and request resp model, and this one is also going to have a generic type of T and implements the I request. There you go. Okay, now we have to implement our methods that we created, and private T data, yep, and private string message. Okay, there you go. And we're gonna have all our constructor. Get data is going to just return this dot data, and get message is going to return this dot message. Okay, there you go. So we have our model, our request and response model. So we're gonna go back here, and here, instead of doing this, what we're gonna do is we're gonna return a mono of response entity, and response entity is going to be of type request response model, and it's going to be type let's just say auth, right? Let's just pass it a string. So don't get confused. What this is you're returning a mono of response entity, and the response entity is going to be of type request response model, and the request response model is going to have the generic type of string. So our data, this data is going to be of type string. If this was, let's say, a boolean, this would be the type T is going to be of type boolean. If you have confusion about generics, then I suggest you to learn the fundamentals of Java first before watching this tutorial. Okay, so we're gonna return a mono.just, and instead of returning a string, we are gonna return a response entity.ok, and the OK is going to return a new request response, and the data is going to be welcome to the private club, and the message is just going to be no message at all. Okay, I think that's gonna be it. What's the error though? Something is being expected. Oh yeah, we are not supposed to put that in. There you go. Just like that, we're gonna return a response entity of type request response model, and this one's gonna be of type string as well. So we're gonna return a mono.just Okay, and then and the body is gonna be response. It's gonna be login page, please log in, or something like that. And the data is gonna message is gonna be no. Okay, yeah, fuck this. I put it again. Let's restart our server and see if things are working just fine. So if you go to login, yes, the data and the message, they are working fine. Okay, there you go, perfect. Okay, so we have made things beautiful, they're well organized, so even if we scale this project, it's gonna still work just fine. So back to our security, it's all working good. Now we are going to focus on making the JWT service. So make a new package called services, and we're going to create a new Java class. I call this JWT service, and we're going to annotate this class with service tag. Okay. Now this class is going to be generating the token, validating the token, and extracting some information from the JWT token itself. So the first thing we need is final private secret key, and we're gonna call this key, right? And mark key, it's not important though. Yeah, so final private JWT parser, it's gonna be parser. Okay, and both of these are going to be in a constructor. Fuck me, man, this is not how it's supposed to be. The constructor is going to be empty, and key, it's going to be just what was that? Yeah, keys dot hmac for byte. Now we're just going to call this 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0 dot byte in bytes. There you go. And for the parser, it's just going to be jwts dot parse builder dot set sign key, this dot key, and then dot build. So this is going to build a parser and return it. Okay, so it's working fine. Yes. The first function we want to create is going to be type string, and it's going to be called generate username. There you go. So it's going to take in the username to return a JWT token based on the username. Okay, there you go. So what we're going to do is JWT builder. Builder is equals to JWTs dot builder. We're going to set the subject, and it's going to be the username. So our username is going to be our subject itself, and set issue date. We're gonna call this date.from instant.now. So exactly at the very moment this function was called, it's going to be the issue date, and set expiration date, date.from instant.now plus. We're gonna do 15 chronos minutes. Okay, there you go. So it's going to expire after 15 minutes from the date it was issued. And then we're going to sign this with our key, and we are going to return builder.compact, which is going to return our token. And we also need another function, public string get username, and this is going to take in the token. So claims is equals to parser. Okay, wait a minute, this one has to be imported. Parser dot parse claim JWTs, and it's going to be our token dot claims. So the second function that we want to have is to get the username from the token. So it's going to be public string get username. We're going to pass in the token, and this one's going to be claims. and claims is equals to parser dot parse claims token dot get body. This is going to return us a list of claims that the token had. So once we have this, what we want to do is claims dot get subject, and we are just gonna return this. There you go, it's as simple as that. Because the subject, if you remember in the previous function, is where we are storing the username, and third function is gonna be validate. We want to pass in the user details, and then we want to pass in the string token. There you go. So we want the claims is equals to parser dot parse claim dot get body. So to expired is equals to claims dot get expiration date dot after, and we want to do date dot from instant dot now. So we are checking if the expiration date has reached, and then what we're gonna do is return unexpired. Sorry, it's gonna be unexpired, to be fair. Doesn't make sense to name it expired. Unexpired, and user dot get name is equals to claims dot get user. What was that? Get subject. Yes. Go back to our controller. Yes, our login. And here we are not going to be returning this anymore. The first thing we want is our reactive user service details. Users, right? Okay. So we want our users, and this is going to be final users, and this is going to be handled by our constructor. This is going to be auto wired by Spring Boot, so we don't have to worry about supplying this because we already created a bin for this in the security. Where is it? Kind of forgot, but yeah, here, over here. Users dot find by username, user dot get email. So we are gonna see if you find a user with the same email. So we are gonna store this in, let's say, user found user, and it's gonna be of mono details. There you go. Empty. What we want to do is we just want to return null. Return null if empty / not found. So if the user has not been found, then we're just gonna return this. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to do a found user dot what do you call that? We are just gonna do flat map. Okay, and it's gonna be u. I'm just gonna call it u because it's much simpler that way. And we're gonna start a lambda function. So inside the lambda function, we're gonna check if u is not equal to null, which means that it's valid. We're gonna check if password is correct. So we're gonna do u.get password is equals to user.get password. So this is gonna be if the password from the user details match the password that was in the payload of the client, then we are just gonna what do you call it? Return mono.just, and it's gonna be of type response entity. Okay, and the body is gonna be new request response model, and it's gonna be of type string, and the data and the message, right? Okay, so at the very top we also need to add the JWT service. We're gonna add this to the constructor as well. So the JWT service dot generate, and it's gonna be based on the u.get username message. It's gonna be success, and yes, that should be it. Okay, if not, what are we gonna do? We're gonna return mono.just, and it's gonna be response entity dot status HTTP status unauthorized. Yep, and dot body is gonna be new request response model string, and the data is going to be null or maybe just empty, and then the message is going to be invalid credentials. There you go. Okay, let's fix this typo, and there you go. So if it is null, we're gonna return mono.just response entity.status unauthorized and dot body, and the body is going to be new request response model, and it's going to be, the data is going to be empty, and the message is going to be user not found, please register. Okay. Okay, so we are we are accessing the flat map of found user, and inside the lambdas we're checking if it's null or not. Check if user was found or not, right? So if we found it, then this is going to, we are going to check if the password is correct, and if it is correct, we are going to generate a token and send it back. And if the user has not been found, we're just going to return this. We're going to return a response entity with a status code of unauthorized, and the body it's going to have an empty data and a message saying user not found. So we're just gonna return this, and what the fuck? Whoa. Let's do this. We don't need this, and there you go. This one. This is not important, and this one is something that I have to actively look at. You can you shouldn't be passing null usually, but in our case it's totally fine because we are taking care of it over here. So this warning can be ignored. So let's restart this. So it has to be something that's a bit long. Yep. Okay, so the server has been started. Postman, and let's see. 200. Okay, what the fuck? This was not supposed to return. Okay. Invalid credentials. What the fuck? Like when the email and password were correct. Okay, but what if this one is SD? Why is this okay? Okay, I just realized the problem. The problem was we encoded the password, right? Over here. Yes, encoded. So we need to use the encoder to decode it as well. Okay, so let's go back to our auth, and here we need to, at the very top, we need to add a password encoder as well. Final password encoder, and we're gonna add it to the constructor. Once we're done with that, we wanna come over here and got this. We're gonna put a comma and u.get password. Yes, that's how it's supposed to be. We don't need this, and it's gonna compare the this password and this password. Okay, so we should get, yep, we got this. But if the password's wrong, the credentials, and if the email is wrong, okay, when the email is not found, this is something that we have to fix. Okay, yeah. So I just realized what the problem was, and it turns out that like this was the main culprit. The thing is, it's annotated with what do you call it? Yeah, add the rate not null, which means that it cannot be null. So this was not working when we were doing the found user.flatmap. It just wasn't executing. The reason being that there was no value, so it wasn't even getting triggered, and it was just exiting, and by default it returns a 200 OK status with no body. So that was what's happening. So to fix this, what I think I should do is default if empty, I'm going to return a new user detail. And yes, this is going to be like an anonymous class. password doesn't even matter. We're just gonna check if the username is null, because if it's null, it means that the object that we got, it doesn't it's not valid. We found user dot map. Okay, so this is gonna be our return, and just gonna do a user, and there you go. So for the first thing that we want to check if u dot get username is equals to null, and it's going to be null. So we're gonna return response entity dot status 404. The body is gonna be new request response model, and it's gonna be data is gonna be empty, and no user found. Please register before logging in. Okay, there you go. This is our first part that's done. But if this is not the case, what we want to do is encoder dot matches. What we want to do is the raw password, right? The raw password is going to be user dot get password, and the encoded one is going to be u dot get password. Return response entity dot okay, and the body is going to be new request, and the data is going to be JWT service dot generate, and it's going to be u dot get username, and the message is going to be just the message itself. Oh, okay, yeah. So this one's going to be here, username, comma, and yeah, there you go. Success. Okay. If this is not the case, what we're gonna do is if the passwords do not match, response entity dot bad request, the body is gonna be new request response model, and the data is gonna be null, and the message is gonna be invalid credentials. And let's open up Postman while our server boots up. Okay, DD doesn't work. Cool. Works fine, and the password's wrong. Invalid credentials. Perfect. This is exactly what we wanted. Okay, it's working. That's good news. We wanted to authenticate, right? Now we have generated this token, and we want to be able to access which link? Yes, auth link based on this. So now everything's working. The authentication, now we have the token. Now we want to use this token to authenticate and authorize users. So now we would like to enter this endpoint as long as we have the valid JWT token, right? So the first thing we want to do is we want to create a class. Let's call this bearer token, and it's going to extend abstract authentication token. There you go. And it's gonna have a string, final private string token. There you go. And it's gonna be this dot token, this dot token, and we're gonna have a constructor authority dot no authorities, so it's gonna have no authorities. And yes, this is how it's supposed to be. And then we have the token, we have this and that. Okay, so we are going to be making use of this as our authentication token. So this is a child of authentication, and so that's something that we have to keep in mind. So now we want to create another class called auth converter. This is going to be responsible convert header values into authentication token. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. Specifically bearer token. Okay, that's what this is supposed to be doing. Okay, we are going to mark this as a component because it's going to be a bean, and the first thing we want to do is this has to implement a server authentication converter. So the convert, okay, there we go, we have implemented this, and this one is just going to return mono dot just or empty. There you go. So what are we going to return? Firstly, we want to exchange get request dot get headers dot get first, and it's going to be of type HTTP headers dot authorization. Perfect. There you go. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to filter this as well. So we're gonna be like dot filter, and we want to filter it as dot starts with bearer space, right? And once we have this, we wanna map it dot map. Sorry, and this s is going to be as the substring string, and it's gonna start with 7, right? So it's gonna skip the bearer space, like I'll just count it 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 7, yeah. So it's going to start from the JWT token itself and skip this section, the dot map, and we have our string, right? We wanna create new bearer token out of this and pass in our string. There you go. Perfect. So this value right here, this is going to be passed to authentication manager. So that's what we are going to create, auth manager, and this one is going to implements reactive authentication manager, and we're gonna implement this itself. Okay, there you go. So what should this be doing, right? We need a JWT service because we do validate and get username. We need a reactive user detail service. Both of these are going to be the constructor. There you go. Perfect. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to return mono dot just, okay, or empty, whatever it is. And here what we want to do is we want to pass in the authentication. But what we want to do is we want to first cast this value to bearer token dot class, because we know that this is what we're getting, right? We're gonna have this. We want to do some stuff, okay? And what we want to do is we have this, right? So we're gonna string dot user. So based on this auth object, we have username. We're gonna get the username, right? We're gonna do JWT service dot get username, and this username is just gonna be auth dot get credentials, because if you remember, bearer token, the get credential is going to return us the token itself. Oh yeah. So it has to return a string, and it has to return a string as well. Mono user detail user, or let's just call it found user, is equals to users dot find by name, and it's gonna be username. Okay, there we go. So now we have the user as well. Dot if empty, we're gonna just do a new details just like the previous code, and it's going to work fine. Okay, there you go. Found user dot map. We want to check if the JWT if the JWT is valid. So we're gonna validate, and we're gonna just pass in our u and then our token itself, auth dot get credentials. So if it is valid, instead of doing this, we can just do if, and then yes. So if it is valid, what we're going to do is we're going to return a new username password authentication token, and the first parameter is going to be our q.get username, and then q.get password, q.get roles artist. There you go. Okay, so this is it. This function is working fine. But if that's not the case, what you want to do, you want to throw new illegal argument exception invalid token. Okay, there you go. And using the return statement, right? Okay, what you want to do is return. Fuck! I just realized that. Oh my gosh! The issue was something that has to do with maps and flat maps. I still have yet to understand them properly. It's a bit confusing, and so I found out what the issue was just by luck, because I was just messing around. So after casting, we want a flat map, right? And we want to start a lambda just like this. So first we want to do is get the username. We do the service that get username, and it's gonna be now once we have the username, what do we want to do? The second step is to find our user. Users.find by name, and it's gonna be get username. Default it if empty, user details. There you go. Check if user was found. I'm just gonna call it var a for the sake of it, and found user.flat map, and we're gonna see the user start a if u dot get username is equals to null, mono dot error, new illegal argument exception, user not found in auth manager. Okay, there you go. And if that's not the case, we're just gonna check if JWT service dot validate u comma and then the auth dot get credentials, return user password authentication token, and dot get username, u dot get password dot get authorities. Go. And this one has to be inside a mono environment, just or empty. Okay. What's wrong now? Oh yeah, I gotta add the word keyword new. Okay, so if that's not the case, if it's not validated, we're gonna do an error, illegal argument exception. It's gonna be is invalid / expired token. So we have a mono of this. We can just return a now, I guess. And since this is a flat map, you know, let's just call this b is equals, let's see, mono of username. Okay, it's correct. Like, it gets a bit confusing between the flat maps and the maps. We could call this mono of authentication, and we're gonna call this authenticated user, and we're just gonna return this authenticated user. And if the token is expired, we are going to never reach the section, so it should be fine. Okay, so now back in security config, we are going to make use of the converter and the manager that we just created. To do that, we are going to have to create a new filter. But before we do that, we're going to do the authentication auth converter, JWT auth converter, and we're going to auth manager, JWT auth manager. Okay, there we go. These two values are going to be applied to us by Spring, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so we are gonna authentication filter filter is equals to new authentication web filter, and we are gonna supply in the JWT auth manager. There you go. And JWT filter dot set converter is gonna be our JWT filter. There you go. Now we have set everything up, and before we disable this, after setting the rules for everything, we're gonna add a filter. Add, right? We wanna add a JWT filter, and it's gonna be in security build authentication. There you go. So this should work now. Everything's fine. So let's recap. Login, it's gonna be public for everyone, and we're going to get a token back, right? We are going to use a token to access this, and when we try to access this filter is going to get fired. Yes, this filter which we created inside the security config, and it uses the authentication manager that we created, as well as the authentication converter that we created, and we added this filter on the authentication layer. So if everything works correctly, this should work fine. So let's start the server. Okay, and inside the postman we're gonna invalid credentials, correct? Okay, cuckoo, and we're gonna get a JWT token. So we're gonna take this token, we're gonna go over here. This one is auth, and authorization is gonna be better token, and we're gonna paste in our and 200. Welcome to the private club. Perfect. If I modify this a little bit, it's gonna be internal error. That's fucking perfect. That's exactly how it was supposed to be, except that we are gonna handle this in the future. And handling exception is something that we want to do later on. It's not something that I want to do in this tutorial because it's really simple and I don't want to touch that thing. So thank you for watching. I hope you learned some things from this tutorial. I'm learning Webflux myself, so a few practices may not be the best, especially the flat maps, inside flat maps, you know, the nested maps and shit like that. I hope to make things better, but yeah, I hope you enjoy.